The role of Joseph is actually meant to point us to the person of Jesus. So if you want to find yourself in the story, you're not Joseph, you're actually Joseph's brothers. We're all Joseph's brothers. We all come in today, whether you want to admit it or not, whether you're realizing it or not, we have all wronged someone. We've all done something, wronged someone, taken something, rejected someone, inflicted damage on someone, wounded someone. We all actually have a wake of destruction behind us. And I actually think we're a lot like the brothers, because oftentimes what we do or how we think or how we process is in the way back of our minds, we're aware of what we did, but we're always waiting for the day that it's going to catch up. Can you relate to that at all? The sin that you had that nobody knows about, right, in your past, decades earlier, the addiction that has played itself out in your life, but at this point you've kept it under wraps. Maybe you left a spouse, nobody really knows you from your former life. Maybe you abused your body in a certain way and you're wondering, is there a day that it's gonna come back and it's gonna catch up with me? So many of us, if we look back, there's a moment or there's a spot or there's a chapter or there's a season that actually leads us to feel shame and guilt and despair and fear that one day it's going to catch up. Right? You might call it karma, right? What goes around comes around. You might call it eye for an eye. At some point, you might be afraid. The day of reckoning is going to come, and it leads you to a place of despair. That's exactly what these brothers were living. It is exactly what they were living. I mean, look at what they do in the text here. Here's what it says. Joseph said to them, "You're spies. You've come to see where our land is unprotected." "No, my lord," they answered. "Your servants have come to buy food. We are all the sons of one man. Your servants are honest men, not spies." Honest? Honest? They've lied for 20 years. They've maintained the lie. Somehow, among all 10 of them, they've maintained the lie. They've pretended that their brother was gone. They pretended that they were good. You can feel it welling up inside of them. They're trying to project, I'm honest, but deep down, they know they're not honest. Here's what plays out beyond that here. "No," he said to them, "you've come to see where our land is unprotected." They replied, "Your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of one man who lived in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no more." They don't even name him. They're talking about him to him, totally unbeknownst. Joseph said to them, "It's just as I told you, you are spies, and the unraveling in the brothers begins." It's like maybe today's the day. Today's the day that it catches up. Today's the day we're found out. Today's the day we get nailed. Today's the day that our life will never be the same because our wrong in our past finally caught up. Do you have that? What part of your story is that? What part of your story are you afraid of will catch up to you one day? What part of your story are you just petrified that someone might find out? What part of your story are you just dreading where you might actually have to go back to the table or back to that home or back to that person and look the person in the eyes that wronged you? These brothers dreaded the moment that they were living in. And here's what they say. It starts unraveling. They said to one another, "Surely we are being punished because of our brother." They start fighting with each other. Today's the day. I knew it. I knew it. This is it. This is the moment we're being accused of being spies, which is basically like being accused of treason. It's like we might be in prison for the rest of our lives. Worse yet, if we're convicted of being spies, we might just be put to death. We left our families at home. We left our jobs at home. We left our kids at home, our spouses at home. We left our livelihood, our parents at home. Everything is catching up, and the damage is going to be so great, they're freaked out. Today's the day that they get nailed. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. Part of the text here, like the Hebrew text that it was actually written in, says we saw the distress and the anguish of his soul. and we ignored him. We didn't care. We were taking revenge. We were initiating payback. We were writing our own story, and you can see the regret that was planted. There's no going back. There's no undoing that. There's no fixing that. You can't get back 20 years. And they're fighting and they're blaming. And they say, that's why this distress has come on us. Reuben replied, didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we must give an accounting for his blood. What's Joseph going through in this moment? What's he feeling? They did not realize that Joseph could understand every single word they were saying. He's using an interpreter, but he understands every word. And it rips him up inside, so much so, it says he turned away from them and he began to weep, but then he came back and spoke to them. Again, Joseph removes himself from the situation, removes himself back into a private room where he weeps and he sobs uncontrollably. Why? I think because he loved his brothers. Because he dreamt of this day for 20 years. He has the ability to take revenge. He has the ability to punish them. But he knows if he does, it's the nail in the coffin. It's over then. It tears him up. It rips him to shreds inside. What is he going to do? But for us, right, I mean, this is our story. This is all of our stories. When I was in high school, we moved from Chicago to Michigan. And I remember it was a really difficult, challenging move for our entire family. If you've ever had a season like this too as a family, like you know how when everybody struggles, it's kind of like everybody for themselves? Like you just got to figure it out. What I did in that season, I have 3 younger siblings. I've seen like videos of myself, like at family gatherings or parties. You ever like see a video of yourself and you're ashamed of how you treated the people around you? Or you're ashamed of like the words you said or the words you used or the demeanor. As I remember that season, I was so hard on my younger siblings. So hard. I have this picture of a scar that's on my hand. And I remember it from this season. I remember I was being so awful to my brother one day that I was literally holding his hands and like the eyes, when it talks about the eyes, like the distress that Joseph had, I remember seeing that in my brother. And he took his nails and he put his hands on the outside of mine and he clawed my skin so deep that it left a scar for the rest of my life. My grandpa was visiting just over the weekend, and I remember he pulled me aside in this season and he said, David, I want to tell you something. My grandpa's like my hero. He pulled me aside and he said, if you treat them like this, they will hate you for the rest of their life. That bugged me. I mean, that hit me so deeply because actually I loved them, but it was not how I was treating them. And I started hearing like, David, you might be doing damage right now that will catch up to you and it will punish you for the rest of your life because they will hate you for it. It was like this fear, like maybe one day this is actually going to catch up. What is it for you? I mean, maybe it's an abortion. Maybe you had an abortion, you kept it a secret, you didn't tell anybody, you've lived this lie, or you projected yourself. Maybe you haven't even told your spouse that you had that or done that, and your deepest fear is that they might find out or somebody in your life might find out. Maybe you have a closeted addiction that's just been a secret and you're scared to death that somebody else around you might find out. Maybe you wronged somebody in your past or you violated somebody. Maybe you moved too fast in a certain scenario and it played itself out that it wreaked havoc on your life, but you've so far been able to outpace it and you're wondering, is it actually going to catch up? Maybe you abused your body when you were younger. And you're wondering, man, the abuse and what I did to it, is there a day that I'm going to get a diagnosis that it's finally going to catch up? So often as we look back at our lives, we look back at the brokenness and the valleys and the pain often comes with it is despair because we are terrified of when those decisions will finally catch up. Maybe it's your kids. A failure to be there or to be present, something you said, something you didn't say. What is it for you? What is it that you're terrified someday might actually catch up? Here's the whole purpose of this story that we're in today is that God actually offers a different ending for us. Doesn't matter if you've been in church your entire life for 10 minutes. Doesn't matter if you go here to Frontline or if you go to another church or if you don't go anywhere at all. Doesn't matter what you believe or don't believe. There's actually a possibility that's on the table that God could rewrite the ending of your story and change your life forever, but it's only through the person of Jesus. See, if we're the brothers, then Jesus is the representation of Joseph. Like Joseph exists to point us to him. Jesus was so overwhelmed with love for us. He calls us his brothers and sisters, right? Joseph has to remove himself from the presence of his brothers who rejected him, who hurt him, who violated him, who sold him, who abandoned him. Jesus did the exact same thing for us when he went to the cross. He was beaten and flogged. He was mocked and spat on. He was ridiculed in front of all of us. We did it. We did it. And so here's Jesus, right? He gets hauled up on this cross as a public spectacle, a public mockery to everybody that saw. This guy says he's the Son of God. Yeah, right. And Jesus looked out over the people that were there, the people that put him on the cross. He was so moved by love for them that he considered the sacrifice was worth it to rewrite our stories. That's why he went to the cross. See, what we often forget is revenge leads to regret. Revenge leads to regret, but forgiveness leads to freedom. That's why Jesus wasn't content leaving us in a state of regret, a perpetual cycle of brokenness and pain and sin and wrongdoing, an eye for an eye for an eye for an eye for an eye. Jesus wanted to break the chains of the cycle that we were living in. So he goes to the cross and he demonstrates, I'm going to die, but I'm going to come back to life because I'm going to demonstrate to everybody that I have the power over life and death. I can redeem anything, even that which is dead, I can bring back to life. That's what he did 3 days later. He defeated death so that you and I could experience freedom in a way that wasn't possible without him. Hey, thanks for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. Hope it made an impact on your life somehow. And if it did, don't forget to like or subscribe or share it on social media with your friends as well. We always love seeing you. And remember that you can join us live every single Sunday. So hope to see you there.